I am a drug addict and I have bad mental health, but I don't use drugs and I'm happy.
Welcome to the Network Plus podcast, where we delve into the world of utilities and beyond. I'm your host, Kat O'Brien, and today's episode is a special one as we focus on a topic that can often be overlooked but is crucial in today's workplace: mental health.
I come into the office one morning, I come in to see my manager and I sat down, I was honest with him, I was upset. I explained how difficult it was, the fact that I got to a place where I thought I beat something that was so difficult to beat.
Today I'm joined by Site Agent for Water in the Northwest, Will Mahaffey, to talk about his personal journey with mental health and his experience with Network Plus. Thanks for joining us today, Will. I'd like to start by asking you where you started in Network Plus and how you got your opportunity to join the company.
I started at the company as an agent on the water, looking after the dig teams who were putting in the new connections and lead replacements for United Utilities as a client. I used to work on the foul for subcontractors for United Utilities, driving the recyclers and jetting the big mains in the middle of roads and stuff like that. And it was just time to step out the wagon and try and step into the office and do something new. So I went to a training centre, paid for my own triple STS card, left the company and then just took the chance, ringing round, trying to find jobs. Spoke to Colin Smith and explained the situation, and then he got in touch with somebody and got me an interview at Network Plus.
Nice.
And it all started from there, yeah.
So when did you join?
2 years ago.
Okay, and in the last 2 years, has your job changed? Have you had any differences to your day-to-day?
Not until this week. Today's my last day on the United Utilities contract. So I'm going to be coming off the water and then moving on to the electric. Going to be a reinstatement agent for ENW for the Electric Northwest, which is total new, just a brand new journey. I don't know anything about the reinstatement side of things.
Different industry as well, isn't it? Power. That's going to be really exciting. I want to talk a little bit more about your journey at Network Plus.
Okay.
That's your day-to-day stuff. What else do you get involved with?
I've helped out with health and safety when you've put stand downs on around the Northwest. Even went down to the south of the country, down to Bristol Water, and helped them out, putting their stand down on with the lads, kind of telling my story, and then doing a bit of kind of one-on-one exercises with groups of people down there, asking probing questions, getting them out of the shells, finding out what they did about getting help when they was going through bad times. If they did get help at all, some of them didn't. Right. And then it was finding out, well, did that work for him when he didn't get any help? A lot of them, the answer would have been no. And then for the ones who did stand out and say they did get help when they were struggling in those times, and I asked them, did it work? And the majority of them said yeah.
That's why we're talking today. So obviously it's really interesting to learn about your career journey, but what we really want to delve into is the role you have in bringing our policies around mental health to life, and sort of how effective those have been, what physical things you've done. So obviously the stand downs is fantastic. That's been a theme for the last couple of years, I think, but especially this year, up and down the country. So I think you've done a fantastic job on Bristol Water, and I believe you've got a few more interested parties, different clients that want you to come and do the same that you delivered there. So we're really, really lucky to have you on board doing that. So thank you. Yeah,
I'm lucky to work for a good company as well. They kind of accept me around, obviously. I'm not perfect.
Nobody is.
No. And they kind of accept the way I am. They know when I'm kind of going off on a tangent, and they kind of leave me alone and know that I'll come back to me normal self.
Yeah.
So
Actually, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
let's talk about what you mean by your normal self and when you're going off on a tangent, and let's delve into that. Yeah. So what does that mean?
I can be quite short-tempered. I can kind of go from 1 to 10 quite quick. It's something kind of that I'm working on. With kind of the life and my story from the past, it's not something I've ever had to change. It's kind of always been an attribute to kind of reach that level straight away, because it's kind of been in situations where it's assisted me, but now I'm in an environment where it's not how things are dealt with and stuff like that. So when getting frustrations for things are not going my way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes I can have a vision and that's how I want it. It's good to have that vision because it drives the teams well and stuff. But then you have to kind of make room for things going wrong.
Yeah.
And work around them and speak about them. And it's all stuff that I'm learning now but then there is obviously when you are learning, you still can make those mistakes. I've had times where I've had to like leave the office because you've got to be mindful of who's around you in the office and, go and calm down, come back, watch your P's and Q's.
Yeah. Well, that's office life, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. You have to remember there's not just you in there.
Yeah. I mean, your role as a site agent is probably one of the most stressful roles in utilities because you're sort of in between worlds. So you're in the office, you're on site, and you're like the connection between those two worlds, which are very different. So I think it's fantastic that you're learning those new skills, but it's also important to sort of remember what helped you in those moments of survival.
Yeah,
because you'll still need it in some ways.
Because it helps you out on the ground as well. Like the lads who dig holes, they're definitely not office staff, are they? So you need to be able to hold your own when it comes to dealing with the lads as well. They need to know that you're the type of person who holds their own, you can hold their own, because then they respect you as well. So it's kind of once you kind of build up that mutual respect, people work well together, don't they?
Yeah, and they're going to have empathy for you, and you're going to have empathy for them.
Yeah, because we both understand what it's like to work outside. So
yeah, exactly. What would you say is like one of the hardest things about working in that environment?
Forgetting yourself. I can be in the office and I can be chatting to the lads on the phone and I can kind of be forgetting how I'm speaking, how I'm acting and stuff like that. And it's about being mindful all the time. That in the office, it's a total different world. Yeah, totally different world. So that's hard. That's quite one of the tough things. Like I can deal with lads if I'm face to face with the lads and I'm out on the ground. I can deal with situations. Been dealing with people all my life. If I'm just dealing with people in the office, I can deal with them.
Yeah.
But if I'm on the phone to the lads and I'm in the office, the two worlds are colliding, aren't they? So you have to be mindful at that point.
And maybe take a breather.
Yeah, you have to control it. Yeah, and do it right. Yeah.
So what are you doing in terms of like development at the company? Is there anything you've taken on? Any challenges you've taken on that might be helping in that area?
Well, I'm doing a level 5 in management through the company. I'm doing an apprenticeship at the minute, which is obviously a lot of online learning and a lot of looking at kind of people, the way people work, different learning styles, and different tools that you can use as well around problems and problem solving and stuff like that. So I don't just have to jump straight to my number 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've got new tools that I'm coming across and that I can use to kind of find out where the problems are coming from and what's best to work way around them. Yeah.
We've had quite a history with mental health. If it's all right with you, I'd quite like to ask you a little bit more about that.
Of course. I had a normal life for a long time, really, if you could call it that. Family holidays. I used to go down to Cornwall all the time. Me, my dad and my mum and my sister and stuff. Used to love it down there in the caravans and stuff like that. Unfortunately, my dad was the type of person who suffered with his own kind of bad mental health, and he had a bad background growing up, and him and his sisters and brother, they had it tough over in Belfast growing up. Moved over to Ancoats and went to high school in Ancoats to try and get away from what it was like over there. But again, kind of a tough place growing up in Ancoats back when he was younger. He suffered a lot with depression, my dad, with a lot of the stuff that had happened, and he tried to take his own life previously. I wasn't aware at this point, because it was something that was kept away from me and my sister at the time.
How old were you?
12 years old when obviously the final at the final stage when he took his own life. Went to school one morning, just a normal day really. Went to school one morning, got the school bus home. I was over at my friend's house having something to eat, having tea at my friend's. There was a knock on the door and it was a close family friend who had come to get me. Not mentioned anything at that point. I was kind of walking through the park back to the house and walked into the house, and obviously my mum and my sister were sat on the sofa quite upset, and I just knew something was wrong at that point. He was reading a letter from my dad, and he obviously took his own life because of where he was kind of at. Kind of didn't accept it straight away. I remember I left the front door. I was like, I'm going out, me. And like walked out the front door and I went round to the corner shop where obviously on the estate where all my mates would be and stuff like that, where we used to go each day after school. Just totally not accepting it. Bumped into my mates and kind of broke down at that point, and then went back home. That was quite a bad time. I remember a couple of days later, my uncle Teddy come through the door, because obviously he'd come down to see my mum and stuff like that. And I remember being sat on the staircase in the hallway, and he'd come through the door, my uncle Teddy, and he looked at me on the stairs and then walked back out, because obviously he got really emotional at that point. And I never seen him again then, because within the same week, obviously, took his own life as well. My uncle Teddy was 37 and my dad was 38, so yeah.
They must have been quite close as kids then.
Yeah, they was tough. They went through it. They went through everything together. They had each other's backs all the time, do you know what I mean? In the family, there was 3 sisters, so they would have been looking after them, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My granddad, I think it's difficult. Some of my aunties spoke to my granddad still, and I think my uncle and my dad spoke to my granddad still, but I don't think he was the nicest of men.
Right.
You know, he ended up...
Yeah.
My nana tried to take her own life, and one of her friends gave her salt water to kind of... Because she overdosed on... Like, took a load of tablets, kind of wanted her to be sick. To try and get the tablets out. And then, obviously, choked on the salt water, and obviously that didn't end up too well. And my granddad, he kind of got with somebody else. And I think when my granddad got with this other woman, I think it was tough for my dad and his brother then.
Right.
My dad and my uncle, I think they ended up looking after.
So it's just like a chain of events, isn't it? Like,
yeah, and I think that's kind of where it all stems from, you know.
Yeah.
Dad made a lot of bad choices. He was in with the wrong crowds and using a lot of drugs and stuff like that, and making a lot of mistakes. And my mum had to kind of leave. She had to kind of...
How did this sort of affect you later in life with your own mental health?
Well, it was just a spiral from there, really. My mum didn't cope well with it. My mum kind of turned to drink for a long time. She didn't cope well with it at all. She'd been with my dad from a young age, so she turned to drink, and she must, you know, I don't blame her for it. It's a tough conversation, you know. She would obviously be searching for that kind of love again that she had from her dad, but not finding it, you know, and searching it for in the wrong places, really. So we grew apart because I wasn't willing to sit about and be part of something like that.
So it's like you kind of lost your support network in one go, which when you're already dealing with your own mental health,
it's tough.
It makes it, really tough. So you just escape, don't you?
Kind of pray then, aren't you? You're open for open for bad people. You're open for bad environments, and then you're open for a bad world at that point, because everything that protects you has gone away, and you're still only a child. I ended up with kind of in the wrong crowds of my dad's friends before I kind of groomed into drug addiction and selling drugs. And I think by the time I was 14 years old, I had a flat in Openshaw that was one of my so-called dad's friends' flats in my name.
Oh.
Selling drugs from there.
Right.
But sat in drug addiction myself. I kind of moved in there because my mum was obviously suffering and drinking, and my dad and everyone wanted here. I ended up living with this guy, and then obviously the life he was leading wasn't a good one. I ended up using a lot of drugs, and then before you know it, he was moved out, and then I was the person who was in that flat where obviously a lot of the drugs were being sold from, and before you knew it, I was the one who was doing it, all the footwork.
Well, that's your role model, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's what turned into my role model at that point. Turned heavily into addiction then for the next few years in that flat. Some really dark times in that flat. Tough to talk about because that was at the time where I would be trying to take my own life then. So, yeah.
Was
tough,
that around
very
the time?
tough to talk about. That's probably the toughest part to talk about, because that's when everyone else's pain become mine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I was too young to have it.
How old were you at this point?
But I was in that flat from about 14, but then he was still there, and I probably would have ended up with the flat when I was about 15 and a half on my own, just coming towards the back end of it, leaving school and stuff.
So most of your teenage years, you were basically living alone or with this guy.
Yeah.
At what point did you decide that you wanted to enroll in the army?
So by the time it got to about 18, 19, obviously, I was using so many drugs, and then dealing with the come downs off drugs and the addiction, and every time I would be coming down from the drugs would be, oh God, the reality of everything of those years previously would just be so heavy on your shoulders. And then I'd be trying to, like I say, at that point I was actively trying to take my own life, if not hoping the drugs had killed me along the way. The more I'd try and use as much drugs as I can, hoping I didn't wake up, you know what I mean? So the answer was the army.
Yeah.
To run away. I had enough. Like, one morning I got up, I was like, I can't do this. just something in me that I just thought I need better than this.
And did you feel like, I mean, obviously you went to Afghanistan, didn't you? So that would have been an extremely stressful environment.
Afghanistan's a bit of a funny place because in the winters it's not very... It changes. Some people can have a good year in Afghanistan and not much happens. Some people can have a bad year.
Yeah.
I obviously drew the short straw. I was over there in the summer in 2010 on
Right.
Peric 12, and it was the bloodiest tour ever recorded. So he was over 72 killed and then over 400 with big injuries. So and we got a battle on off the Queen that year because we was Anzio company for One Lancs. We was the most contacted company to be on that tour.
Wow.
So very tough times. It's not really what you see over there. I say that to everybody. It's the stuff you see you can watch on a film or the internet.
Yeah.
It's not what you see. It's the emotion because you're the one in that moment. So you can wake up happy one morning and having a laugh and a joke with one of your mates. That same person can be gone by the afternoon. Do you know what I mean?
And I suppose that's something that you're going to carry with you for the rest of your life, isn't it? It's that trauma.
Yeah, a lot of actions. Like it only takes one action from yourself to have a butterfly effect. You might have one bad action, it could be the end of someone's life.
It's a lot of pressure, isn't it? Especially when you're that young.
Yeah,
I mean, how old were you?
21. I flew out there on my 21st birthday, yeah.
Jeez, that is really young. To have all that responsibility, and when you're already dealing with addiction, mental health, breakdown of your family.
You're running away from it all, though, wasn't I? I wouldn't say I was dealing with it. I was running away from it.
Maybe.
Yeah, that was the issue.
So after you came back, you had a few more years of sort of selling drugs?
Yes, well, just straight back into drug addiction. I only sold drugs so I could get free drugs.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
And did you go to jail for that eventually?
Yeah.
Or how did it end?
Yeah. Done a few prison sentences, even down south. Locked up in Bristol. Been locked up in Liverpool. Locked up in Preston. I've been locked up in Warrington. Done a couple of years behind the door, so to speak.
You're 34 now.
34 now. My last prison sentence was 6 years ago this December. My daughter's 7, and she was a turning point.
Yeah.
Because on my last prison sentence, obviously, it got to a point. My missus, she's an angel. She is. I've been with her 10 years, but got to a point she had to put her own safety first with the life I was living, and she was pregnant, and she had to suppress all my mental health with drug addiction. And so she'd come down, drugs on the side, drugs in the kitchen, drugs in it. She's just drug paraphernalia everywhere, and no job. And she had to go back to her mum's because she got to think of herself and the baby,
the kids,
Yeah. So, and then I was obviously went away as she went to her mum's. I'd gone to jail, and I chose not to. She wanted me to see my daughter. My daughter was born and my daughter was baby. Yeah, she wanted me to see my daughter, but I made the choice of I'm not bringing my daughter into a visiting room. I'm not having my daughter searched. It's everyone's own experience. A lot of people do have the kids come to jail. They got no choice. It just wasn't a choice of mine. I didn't want my innocent daughter being searched. No way. So it's my mistake.
Absolutely. I think it's important to sort of note that family that you've created with your partner Louise is probably what drew you out of this hole.
Saved me, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe
emotional when I say that. All back the tears when I say that.
Yeah, but of course, because you've gone from darkness to light, haven't you? And I think it's that moment where you decided in your head, enough's enough. I've done everything I can possibly do to myself to destroy myself. What's the other option here? How can I move forward?
To help yourself.
Yeah. And every time you're having a dark moment, are you thinking of them? Is that what brings you out of it? Or
God, I'm so far away from that part of where I was mentally. Since I've met Louise, I've never been in that place where I've wanted to kind of take my own life anymore.
That's so
But then I couldn't break the chains of addiction, There was someone said the other day that the chains of addiction are so soft, but you don't feel how hard they are until you can't break them.
Wow.
And it kind of
Is that because it sort of happens
you just
gradually, doesn't it? It sort of climbs in.
Yeah. And then I couldn't break it at this point, and I knew I had someone so special with Louise, and it was having so much of a bad impact on her life as well. and I couldn't stop. Like, and I promised her everything, and I would try my hardest, but I just couldn't stop using. But until like the last prison sentence, I watched my daughter grow up on pictures in my jail cell, and I created this image of when I get out, I'm gonna take her here, I'm gonna take her there, I'm gonna paint pictures with her, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and and I couldn't wait to see her. And then on the first time I seen her, she run off from me and just didn't know who it was. So obviously that was shattered, and at that point it was like, well, be a bit of a conversation with yourself. Well, you did that, so you need to change that, because she'll end up like you are now. And then I just wasn't willing to do it, and then I've just been on a mission these past 6 years to get straight, and it's not been easy. You know what I mean? There's a lot of mistakes.
I was about to say that there's going to be a lot of people that listen to this and think, how have you actually done it? Because you've done all these physical challenges as well, which we haven't even spoken about, which are, for most people, something they would never even consider in their life. And then day to day, you know, every day you're going to have to decide, aren't you? Like, I'm not going to use, and
yeah, 100%. Yeah,
it's every day.
Every day.
So
if you're an addict, it's not something that goes away.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm clean now. I'm a recovered addict at the moment. My symptoms, I think it's about that understanding. I go to the meetings, go to the AA meetings, Alcoholics Anonymous. I go to the Cocaine Anonymous meetings, do the 12 steps. I help other people with the program, and it's like the AA meetings, the 12 steps. It teaches you can have your symptoms removed by working with a program, but you'll never be cured.
So it'll always be there.
Yeah. So you can be in a recovered state. So I don't obsess with drinking drugs, because the program helps with that. But if you put the program down, because you're never cured, it will come back. I have a mind that tells me I can use, and then I have a body that says no, you can't, because you'll ruin your life.
Yeah. It's a constant battle.
And you're in the middle. Yeah.
So mental health in utilities and construction is statistically much higher than other industries, and suicide in men is the #1 killer for men under 50. And in the UK alone, we lose 12 men a day to suicide. I just want to talk about that a little bit more.
There's one every 2 hours, isn't it?
Well, exactly, yeah. I mean, it's awful. And I think, you know, we've all encountered something along the way, haven't we? Because it is so common. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's higher in utilities, and why do you think it's higher in men?
It'd be so many different reasons. I think a lot of the lads who are digging in utilities and scaffolders and people like myself, I don't think we was ever the ones to be sat in school listening when everyone was trying to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think we was the ones who took our textbooks home skipping ready to do homework, was we? Do you know what I mean? So,
maybe not.
Yeah, I feel like obviously a lot of lads from the background kind of come from kind of places kind of off the estate, and kind of from that kind of social environment of tough times, you know what I mean? I think they do have a background of them tough times, and I think that can lead to a lot of low self-esteem. This is just from my experience. With low self-esteem, you can kind of place everything in another person, and like my dad placed all his love and everything into my mum and his kids. When that kind of was took away because of his low self-esteem he was left with, he took his own life. If you strip everything away from all the men, maybe a lot of them have got issues and stuff from the past and the way in societies he grew up with, and I think it causes a lot of problems when they're older. And like my dad was a very tough man. He was very out on the street, or
not much of a talker about his emotions.
Definitely not, yeah. And then that's the issue.
Which is one of your biggest strengths, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. He was too tough to talk, but he's not here now. I'll speak, and I am, and from my experience, that just says a lot, you know. Yeah. I remember speaking to my auntie one time. He was having something to eat in Ashton one time with my auntie and my mum, and I bumped into an old school teacher, and she was talking to us at the table and stuff, and she was happy to see where I was at currently. And it's like my mum was talking to the teacher, and it come up with a conversation about the time when I was in school and going through what I went through, and she was saying, "Oh, do you have a bit of worry about maybe me turning out the same?" And it's like my auntie said, "No." My auntie stepped in at that point. She's like, "I don't think he ever would, because he's too honest and speaks." And even my auntie like kind of stepped in at that point, and it's true. I will be open about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you should be, shouldn't you? Because every time you share your story, you're helping someone.
It's the key thing. I have a poorly mind, you know, and I have to accept that my mind is a poorly mind, but you can't fix a poorly mind with a poorly mind.
Yeah, you need help.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's it. And the message is to everyone, like, why I do this stuff is because, like, I am a drug addict and I have bad mental health, but I don't use drugs and I'm happy. So, and that's why we have to do this stuff. And I only get there by understanding that I can't fix my mind. So I need to talk about my mind.
What would you say to someone who is struggling with addiction in our company or in relevant companies, utilities companies? Like, they're outside, maybe they're not talking to anyone, and every day, just like you, they have a poorly mind and they are an addict. What would you say to them?
You know who your close people are in work.
Yeah.
First, speak to your close people. They're gonna be the most people that you're comfortable with speaking to at that first step. And then to understand, obviously, one of the great things about Network Plus is that I really am happy about as a person who works here is that you have the rehab schemes in place. And if you are working for a company like ours, I can only speak for our company because that's all I know about with what we have in place is to come forward and to be honest to your supervisor or somebody you know you can trust.
Yeah.
And just understand that we do have the rehab schemes in place, and the rehab schemes are there to protect you as well. If you feel like your manager doesn't like you and your manager could use this as the first opportunity to get rid of you because you've told him you're an addict, the rehab scheme protects you. He won't be able to.
That's amazing. So you don't have to go through your manager. You
can go and let somebody know, to let them know we've got the rehab scheme, speak to HR, speak to health and safety. Let's try and get you on the rehab scheme.
Amazing.
And it's very realistic as well. So you have to understand, like, with addiction, it can be in drink and alcohol. If you are a heavy user with alcohol and you was to just stop drinking, it can kill you. So you can't do that. And the rehab scheme in Network Plus provides the two different types. So if you are a heavy user, all they want to see is a reduction in your using that they're testing for because you know it's not safe. And then obviously if you was like myself, if I was to have a relapse or a bad moment and obviously make the mistake of using again and I would come forward to Network Plus, then it would be like, let's get this out your system now. Let's get 5 clean drugs tests. Let's get you back on track. Let's go get it. You know what I mean? And they are the two different rehab schemes that we have in place. And because there is guidelines around them, you will be protected. You won't just be like, right, you've told me you're using drugs. I can get rid of you because I don't like you because you said no to me one morning.
It's a bit like, what you were saying about your uncle and you not getting that closure of saying, well, actually, he has committed suicide. It's that sort of, you've got to be honest about these things. You've got to be realistic, haven't you? And I think with the rehab scheme, that's really important because a lot of people will just say, why doesn't he just stop drinking?
Yeah, oh God, that's the worst
thing I've heard that say. So much.
Winds me up. And I do hate it. I don't like to use the word hate. But when people say, why don't you just get help?
Yeah.
Don't just tell somebody to go and get help. Help them get help.
Yes, exactly.
Like the amount of times people are like, why don't you get help? Yeah.
And guide them. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't just tell someone to get help and then walk off and carry on with your day.
But it's a whole education piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because people who've not been in that world or haven't experienced it themselves, they have to go through that path and they have to...
A lot of people can be dismissive to that world as well because it's not a problem of theirs. It's, they don't understand it.
What would you say to those people? Those that don't understand it.
Am I at 1
don't
or
have
10?
The patience. Let's go at 5.
I wouldn't tell anybody to do anything. Like I wouldn't. I don't try and give my opinion a lot. All I try and do, like with everything, is give my experience. If something's an opinion, you can lose people's attention.
Yeah.
Because it's more forceful. So for somebody who is kind of dismissive, I'd maybe sit down with them and tell them my experience and tell them where I'm at now compared to where I was at then.
And that's because you've had help. People were patient.
You can just try and share your experience and hope someone learns from it.
Yeah.
Not everybody takes everything on board, and you've got to accept that.
What's the best thing that someone can do to support an addict? Because I think a lot of people do the tough love, which does not work. So it's...
Get them in touch with another addict. For me, an addict will go more out of his way to help another addict. So get them to meetings. And don't get them there. You're not going to force somebody to do it. Just signpost to where there's going to be other addicts who are well. Do you know what I mean? If you can
it's empathy, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. If you can signpost them to a place where there is other people like myself, we will be there. Then you're gonna they're gonna identify. You'll have the identification.
They won't feel insecure.
Yeah. They'll know they can. I'll tell them my story first, or another addict will be telling them their stories. Straight away, they'll be settled, and they'll know they're in a place where they can see hope. Do you know what I mean?
And they're safe.
Yeah. A lot of people are at that point of being hopeless, and if you can signpost somebody to a place where you get hope, then it could really help. So it's all about signposting, really.
So addiction is its own thing. What would you say to someone who's dealing with mental health issues, but it hasn't transformed into addiction, but they're feeling really low, and there's so many different kinds of mental health.
Yeah, there is
anxiety, depression. What would you say are the best places to go?
To the experts, you have to speak to the doctor, and stuff like that. Like a lot of people think that they know everything, and you can mention meds to people, and everyone comes out with their opinion. Again, people giving opinions can be quite a damaging thing. Professionals are there for a reason.
So how supported have you felt at Network Plus with your mental health and these issues?
Massively. When I first started here, like I say, obviously I'm 6 years out of jail and 6 years like away from where I was at with my addiction. It has been a journey of setbacks. It's not, you can't be in addiction for over 15 years plus and then it disappear within a few years. And I remember when I first started at the company, I swam the channel. We swam the channel for a local charity.
The English channel?
Yeah, the English channel, yeah.
Blimey.
We did that as a relay team. And when I kind of come back from that channel swim, I was meant to do it as a solo swim, and I ended up poorly in hospital. I couldn't get another boat, so I had to kind of just go. So I had to like gather a team together and do the swim. And then when I got over to France, there's a lot of resentments against the swim, massive resentments against myself for kind of not doing what I set out to do. When I got back from the channel swim, because of my resentments and because I wanted my program and because I thought, hey, I've got this, I'm clean now and stuff like that, it fell flat on my face.
Oh, really?
Yeah, fell flat on my face. Fell flat back into addiction. And then not coming into work because obviously.
How many years ago was this?
This was right at the start, right?
So 2 years ago?
2 years. Well,
Yeah.
about 18 months ago. So,
Okay.
Yeah. And it was just like I come into the office one morning, I come in to see my manager, and I sat down, I was honest with him, I was upset. I explained how difficult it was, the fact that I got to a place where I thought I beat something that was so difficult to beat, and then to fall back, it was too difficult to admit and too difficult to come forward. But I was sat in the office with my manager at Network Plus at this time, like taking that step because I knew I had to speak, I knew I had to be honest at that time. And then all he did was help me to get me right back on my feet to get where I am now.
That just shows you that being honest about like the struggles you're going through is really the best option. Because the worst thing is, you've had a really positive experience, but there'll be people who have really struggled and haven't come forward and they've missed work and people have gone, oh God.
Not in again.
This is typical him and he's left the company. And I guess it's that bridging that of like, I actually do need to say what's going on.
Yeah. And it's tough. It's hard. Like I say, I thought I cracked it. So then the humility I had to have. And, I've just swam the channel for charity for people who are suffering. Next thing you know, I'm one of them suffering myself again. And it was very tough. But if you're listening to this now and just like I know it's difficult, but just take away the fact that I was able to do it and I'm no different from anybody else. Do you know what I mean? We're made from the same stuff.
Let's talk a little bit about your role at Network Plus, being quite, utilities as a whole is quite a hectic industry. Anything can happen every day. Your role as a site agent is going to be heavily involved in those operations. How does that complement who you are as a person?
It manifests my addiction into a good area, doesn't it? It's fast moving. It's it's everything that I need.
Nice.
It's everything that I need.
So for
you
all
know,
those
and
addicts out there,
come and get. Well, yeah, no, I was gonna say come and get a high pressure job done. You know.
I want to talk a little bit about neurodiversity. You have ADHD.
Oh right, yeah, it's tough. I've been diagnosed and I've got PTSD as well. I do have being diagnosed with PTSD and stuff, and there is times, you know, I've had to go to the doctors and seek help, and you know, I've had to have therapy and do CBT. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot of work, but again, the key message is there's a lot of talking involved. You know, a lot of therapy, a lot of revisiting things, and it's only until you get to the bottom of everything so you can start kind of coming out. You know, and dealing with stuff and having an awareness of who you are. You know, having awareness of who you are, having awareness of what you've got. It's a massive thing, especially like with people who suffer with ADHD. You have the communication breakdown. Someone could be talking to you and telling you things, and you needed to listen. And then by the time you've just finished the conversation for what you needed to listen to, you've not.
You've gone.
You've gone.
You're in space.
Yeah. And then it's about it's like going stop. Like at that point, that explains to the person who you're dealing with, like how you are. Can you just repeat it for me? You know, I write everything down. I have to write everything down because another part of that is that I forget everything constantly. It's not just that. It's not just the conversation side of thing. I will constantly forget everything. I had too many thoughts going through my mind to be able to remember everything. Everything's got to be wrote down for me, so that helps.
But I think it's not a weakness. It's absolutely a strength.
It's an attribute.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
And there's loads of people in our business in senior positions that have got ADHD.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, maybe it's not 100% healthy for everyone to be in a high pressure environment.
No, definitely not.
But it certainly does attract people with that skill set.
We're fast-moving people, aren't we? You know, we're fast-moving people in a fast-moving job, and it really, really does suit. You know what I mean? And you know, I've never felt so at home working for a company as what I do at Network Plus. So it's really good for me. Yeah.
It's a family.
Yeah. I spend more time here than I do at
family.
home, don't I? So yeah, it is. It's brilliant. It really is. You're happy to come and work. Don't get me wrong, there's tough days when I can't wait to get home, people, know what I mean? Things have annoyed me, people have annoyed me, but people, places and things will never change them, you know?
No, and there's always going to be good days and bad days. Something else I want to talk about is the wellbeing calendar and sort of seasonal mental health issues. So we've spoken about this before, but
we have done, yeah. But it was good to speak because it kind of opened my view.
Because you were like, no, mental health is not seasonal. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah, you have to admit when you're wrong. You know, we spoke about it. We sat down and you know what I mean. There's a lot of people sad around Christmas and missing loved ones, and it can quite be a seasonal thing. Yeah, which again was good to speak because it kind of opened my eyes and.
What about summer? Because you said that. You know, summer is
Summer's not my thing.
It's not your thing, is it? You run hot.
Yeah. Summer is not my thing.
You like the cold, wet, dark mornings.
Yeah, I like the dark mornings, out in the cold, running down the street. I thrive in the winter.
Proper Manchester you are,
yeah. Summers are not for me, It was a good conversation to have. And again, it's something you're never going to avoid. Them years are going to come round year after year, time after time. The leaves will fall and they'll grow back, and there's nothing you'll ever be able to do with it. The only one thing you can do with it is accept it, speak about it, and go and get help around.
To help you grow that resistance.
Yeah. Go and get help around who you are. And a lot of time you can get a lot of tips, and, you know, there's a lot of things that can help you with those times.
What can we do as a company to sort of support mental health throughout the year? Because it's going to be different things for everyone, but there's going to be themes, isn't there, that are prevalent.
I think what you do now is absolutely amazing, but I just think one of the main things is to always look at growth.
Yeah.
Always look at the areas you can grow in. Look at the areas you've not got so much information into the others. If you've not got so much information in that area, then hit that area more, target that area.
What areas are we not targeting at the moment? We'd love to hear that feedback.
From my experience, we have the stand down at the start of the year, like we have done in Bristol. We've had the stand downs at the start of this year. We speak about it on a big scale, like once a year. Where are you for the next 11 months? Can't just have one stand down around, like, obviously works and years. It's the start of the year now. Let's have a stand down. Let's speak about everything. Let's, you know what I mean? Let's let's get behind the lads, let's show them we're here, let's show them we talk about mental health. And then 11 months, you're gone till next year.
I mean, it's about creating a culture, isn't it?
It don't have to be a big stand down and stuff like that, you know, but do the HR team get out and see the lads on the ground? Are they active? Are they about? Are they speaking to people? Are they on sites? Are they with the people who need to be spoken to? Like you said at the beginning, there's a lot of suicide in construction. Are they where the construction workers are? That's what you got to ask yourself. Are the people who supporting them outside with them, or are they indoor piecing everything together? Are they creating PowerPoints? Are they looking for resources? Are they looking for signpostings, or are you out speaking to them? Yeah. Are you out checking in on him? Are you out signposting them? Are you looking for behaviours? You know what I mean?
More powerful, isn't it? So we have a network of wellbeing champions and mental health first aiders. We have a selection of people who've had formal training over 2 days, and some that have had sort of awareness training for 1 day.
Which is good.
It's all good. Those people are all over the country on different contracts and different levels of the business, and they're the points of contact that people should be going to if they need to signpost.
Definitely. They got the information.
Yeah. I think, what would you say to those people as wellbeing champions? Like,
to speak to each other. Make sure you talk to each other. You know, like you could have had a challenging phone call. You know, like God, someone could phone you up and tell you a story like mine. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
Quite a strong story. You know, you might not be ready for it. Might not be equipped with it. Again, accept that. Or do you know what? Like, it's okay with passing something on to someone who might be able to deal with it better than you as well. Don't feel too under pressure because sometimes you can. I've done it myself. You can feel like you want to help that person, but it's too much for you, and then you'll end up putting yourself in a bad position if it's not for you. You know what I mean?
And then you're not helping that person, are you?
You're not helping them.
You're suffering yourself.
Know about the strengths and weaknesses across your well-being team. You know, who's some of the stronger than others.
In what area.
Yeah. Pass stuff on if
like
you feel it's not for you.
Really.
Yeah. Talk about where you're at if you're having a bad time with helping others, you know. And like I say, don't be afraid to pass someone on, because the person who needs the help would be happier to hear someone be honest with them and say, I'm going to give you to someone I think can help you more. I think the person on the other side of that phone will respect that a lot more than somebody who's going to just kind of deal with it, who's not going to be able to help them as much as the other person could.
Well, it's been really interesting talking to you today. Thank you for coming in. I'd just like to ask you, what are your hopes for the future?
Just to keep growing, an office next to Dan Holland's maybe. No, I'm only joking. Just to keep growing. Do you know what I mean? Like, the business has done so much for me. I enjoy supporting the business. I enjoy striving to be the best in my role, knowing that it helps. And I just want to continue with that. If there's another area, like I'm moving on to the ENW contract, like that's a new contract, it's taken off. I'm excited to help with that because it's new. Thinking, right, I've got an opportunity here to kind of work hard, get it to a good place.
What about your personal life, though? Anything that you're excited about to share?
Not I can think of. No, I'm joking. Getting married in June, obviously, with Louise, who unfortunately has had to go through a lot because of where I was at. But then at the same time, I suppose our marriage has already been tested. So
yeah.
It's not something
you can overcome anything.
Yeah. Anything from now on in is going to be plain sailing compared to where I was at, as long as I stay working my programme.
So, Will, what would you say in a nutshell is the key message from today?
The key message is that you have to speak. If you don't speak, then you're trying to fix your poorly mind with your own poorly mind. It's just in that alone, innit? You're not able to do it yourself. The only way to get assistance with that is by introducing someone else. And don't be afraid of coming forward, because everyone does matter.
Thank you so much. It's been fascinating talking to you. And good luck for the wedding.
Thank you.
Good luck for the future.
Thank you very much.